rights. There's a lot of potential motives. Whether the Chertoff group was involved or not should be the responsibility of a cogent law enforcement agency, or Senate or House congressional committees, legislative committees. On vegastruth.org, I post links to the various committees where we can hopefully initiate some sort of response, to have folks look into it. I think it does make sense. I think the insider trading, I think the reveal on the 4chan post has too much specificity to be ignored. So to me, yeah, it does make sense, but um, I can't say unequivocally that that's exactly what happened. I just know that the information that's out there cannot be true. It cannot be true that Paddock did that shooting.
Who do you think inside those rooms was carrying out those shots? I mean, ballistics data, autopsies. Does it seem like it was a group of individuals, a paramilitary group? Do you have any sense of what it might be?
Well, whoever did it would have had to have had control of the security of the hotel. Those hotels are riddled with cameras. Every floor, every elevator, every angle, every vantage point, you know, it doesn't make sense that they would not have had control of that security. Um, if the windows were broken out at the end of the shooting event, then somebody would have needed to break those windows out. The individual that we're told tried to intervene with the shooting, Jesus Campos, um, he was in the area at the time, potentially as a suspect. He broke those windows out. I don't know the answer to that, but somebody might look into it and find out. And what's curious is there were no 911 calls from the hotel. There weren't calls from the adjacent rooms or floors saying, "Hey, there's automatic weapon fire coming from right there." We didn't get any of that. We got calls from the strip, we got calls from outside. Where were the calls from the hotel? I don't think any shots actually came from the hotel. That's my assessment. I think that in the West, in the Southwest in particular, we have enough concealed carry individuals, private party folks, who, if shots had been coming from a room like that, would have been sheepdogs and would have gone in and would have ended the threat. And so I think that the plotters likely knew that. Look at what happened in Dallas, where those two guys got spun up to go commit a mass murder at an art festival or something, and I mean they were put down, I think, before they even got their rifles fully extended. I mean,
Right.
I think that they likely staged this sniper's nest, um, had that all ready to go, shot from wherever else they shot from, which could have also been from other locations other than aircraft. I'm not saying exclusively aircraft, but the evidence does seem to point that aircraft was used. Um, and then when the time was right, they breached the door and thought that they had the story all spelled
Buttoned up.
out, but
Yeah.
yeah, all buttoned up. So I want to talk about just a couple more things, and then I'll wrap up the slideshow. Okay.
Sure.
In this video here, we're going to see a DEA agent discussing the fact that he realized in his war on drugs that the CIA had actually infiltrated the DEA in the 80s.
We didn't know that that at the time that a lot of that so-called DEA people that were brought into the DEA were CIA double agents, and these double agents were brought into the DEA to spy on our operations. And a lot of them, they showed up at offices in foreign countries. I had a couple working underneath me that I didn't even know were CIA guys.
And with all of this information, I decided to alert the Intelligence Committee Inspector General and to ask them to please look at it, because clearly the FBI was not doing the right thing. The DOJ was not doing the right thing. Even the FAA was not doing the right thing because the FAA was having a deferential approach to the FBI. They weren't releasing the records. And I gave all of this information to the ICIG, and they failed to act. And one of the things that they said in their response was, please consider reaching out to Congress. It's like their hands were tied too. It's like the executive branch was completely incapable of resolving this matter. So FAA finally did release some data in 2021. And so what's curious about this is that they released the raw radar records all except the timestamp between 4:55 UTC, which was 9:55 Vegas time, and 5:10 UTC, 10:10 Vegas time. So they released the raw radar records except for the most important records of the whole event. I spoke to an individual there at FAA, and in this recorded phone call, we learned that the raw data was pulled in 2017, that the FBI told the FAA not to release the raw records, that the raw files were secondary and primary, but that they were missing that most important time section. And then the person that I was speaking to said that that was likely because of just the way it was pulled, that in this major crime event, they pulled the records and just happened to forget to pull the records from the most important part of the whole thing, if you can believe that. And what was so shocking to me was the person I was speaking to, I got the sense that he might have actually believed that. So it's cognitive dissonance. There was a point where I called the FBI tip line to report the tail numbers of these things. And, it's not in my nature to go, narking out every crime. Okay. But in an event where they tried to kill thousands of innocent people, like, we all have to step up, right? So when I was speaking to the tip line and I gave the tail number, the agent on the other end of the phone laughed and basically said, "This call's done because how could I possibly know the tail number?" I mean, it's like the cognitive dissonance in our administrations is just, it's over the top. And it allows people to continue to conduct these kinds of operations because folks are incredulous. They can't believe that somebody could be so evil. From a recent Congressional Oversight Committee report, we learned that after 2001, the FBI's culture was to produce a more centralized and intelligence-driven organization, and that the investigations were largely run out of DC and no longer field offices. And so, something's got to change, folks. I would encourage anybody in law enforcement to reach out to these committees. Anybody who might have additional information, reach out to folks in these committees. I'll share with you that I reached out to these committees and they do not care. But I'm just a smart guy who paid attention, and perhaps somebody with a stronger set of credentials might elicit a response. Maybe somebody watching this interview, this presentation, may know somebody who might care to get something done. Maybe this new administration will get something done. These are all unknown questions at this point. But for anybody that might be a whistleblower, this is just a reminder that you are protected and that you can speak about this stuff without fear of reprisal. And so I would encourage the public, if you're a medical professional, if you have the wherewithal to discern that, hey, that year doesn't match that year, therefore that is not the same person, right? And you can speak to that, then speak to that, right? If you're somebody who understands, the dynamics of radar interpretation and whatnot, and you understand flight control routes and all of that, speak on it. We need to not be shy about this. We need to be okay creating uncomfortable conversations because literally our lives depend on it. So I think that's kind of the takeaway from this. What I hope to share with folks, I hope to encourage others to do more, to reach out and to try to get things done. And so I'll leave this quote with Twain. And that's a wrap for the presentation. I understand it's a little awkward running a PowerPoint over an internet call, but I appreciate your patience with that. And
well, thank you, Xander, for all of that. And I just wanted to step back and watch all of the data and allow our audience to soak it in without me stepping all over it. So I think people can draw their own conclusions. I think the evidence in many ways, speaks for itself. And I think, even where you started, looking at the body of this guy, not the same guy. Why was he chosen? Why do you think Stephen Paddock was chosen as the shooter in this, and all of the death, all of the carnage is tied to this guy?
I don't know if he volunteered or was chosen, but he was certainly involved in some manner. I mean, we do have the footage of him entering the hotel, bringing the weapons up, being in the hotel. What's interesting is we don't have a continuous time stream of what happened. You know, they just released little snapshots, just enough to show us that, yeah, hey, he was there. But he probably had a history of working, you know, in some sort of clandestine or, you know, illicit operations. And you know, I try to envision what it's like on the other side. I mean, if I were doing something like this, I might make a proposal like, we'll pay X amount of dollars, and you know, we're gonna take care of you when it's done, and talk them into doing it, and then make sure nobody ever sees him again. You know.
These people are evil. I mean, these people are absolutely demonic. And when Americans wake up and understand this deep state, and you know, specifically what Trump's trying to do right now to eliminate this, and you realize the multi-headed hydra that exists, it's deeply disturbing. Whether you're looking at child trafficking operations that are run by the Department of Homeland Security, what they did on 9/11 and the cover up there, to get us into have a Patriot Act and now give up most of our civil liberties. These people are evil, and they will stop at nothing. And I'm convinced of that. It's sad. You know, it's really sad to think that that's the case. And I know people compartmentalize these things. They block out certain things. They can just look at, the border invasion, U.S. southern border, and what these people do. But it goes much deeper than that. And I think you're seeing the most evil pieces of this with what you just exposed here, Xander.
I think for me too, like the gaslighting that goes on when we see something that's so obvious, and yet we're all told to just say, "Oh, the sky is red. The sky is red." It's really important that the public be able to speak up and talk about what's actually going on, what has actually happened. So, what I mean by that is that I think that there's room for resolution. Okay, I think that there's room for recovery in this country, but I think that a really critical part of that has to be reconciling these things that are so obviously wrong, so obviously lies. And yes, I think evil is an appropriate word, and perhaps justice is what is needed. But even if we cannot get there, you know, perhaps a Truth and Reconciliation Committee could, you know, help to unravel a lot of this, help to kind of just debride the wound so that we could at least move forward in some way where we're not further inundated with these kinds of atrocities. If that was my role in really getting involved in the Vegas shooting, you know, I'd spent so many years with respect to 9/11 truth, that I felt like the Vegas shooting was perhaps a side run. You know, we could maybe get to some answers and to some resolution through that. And what I learned is that, you know, just how deeply broken the system really is. So it is my hope and prayer that this next administration, with, you know, voices like Bobby Kennedy and others in the ear of the president, might really, we might really truly get somewhere. So that is my hope.
I agree. I'm a glass half full kind of guy. Sounds like you are as well. And
Yeah.
I hope that.
Cheers.
Cheers to that. Thank you for this amazing research, Xander. If people want to learn more or dive into the documents, where can people go?
VegasTruth.org is the best location for that. And, you know, forgive me, folks, because I have another life. This is not my primary role. Like, I'm out there mountain biking and doing clinical healthcare and, like, you know, trying to have a family and all of that. So, but the website is relatively well maintained. The documents are there. You can review them. You can watch the videos, and please use the reporting links. Reach out to the Homeland Security committees, reach out to the Senate investigation committees, and then go to those committee websites and look at the representatives and the senators in your area and call their offices. They are human beings just like you and I, but they will not do anything unless they are asked to do it, and they need to be asked to do it vociferously. So please engage them. And I think that maybe with that, we might get somewhere.
Well said.
VegasTruth.
Thank you, Xander. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Clayton, very much.